We are here to talk about all of the palettes that I have tried in 2024 so far. I have 14 palettes sitting in front of me. I am going to rank them from least favorite to most favorite, worst to best, whatever you want to say. I'm going to show you some swatches. I'm going to show you these up close, and we are going to talk about my thoughts of this year's eyeshadow palettes. Let's jump in. Little disclaimer, if you do hear some banging, I live in Houston. Hurricane barreled through Houston last week at the time of filming, and we currently have some fence work happening. So I can hear things every now and then, but the show must go on. Now, I mentioned that I have 14 palettes, but there are a few that I'm grouping together. So in the ranking, we are starting with my least favorite or the worst palette of 2024 so far. It is number 12, and I am giving it to the Natasha Denona Hyper Natural Face Palette. Now, Natasha Denona has come out with a few palettes that they have called face and eye palettes, where they do have, like a blush and a highlighter and some eyeshadows. But this was the first time that we were seeing a bronzer, a blush, and some eyeshadow shades. And Natasha Denona did say that this eyeshadow formula is meant to be like a one and done. So these are new formulations of the eyeshadows. So if you're looking at them, it's not really going to create a conducive look. Each of these shadows are kind of meant to be used on their own. Now, I will say I have a full review of this and most of these palettes, so I'm gonna have those listed down below. But this is coming in at the number 12 spot. I love Natasha Denona. Natasha Denona is my favorite eyeshadow formula. I recently uploaded a video where I was talking about all of my Natasha Denona MIDI palettes and which ones are my favorites. I ranked them, so definitely check that out down below if you're interested. I think this is a palette that I will probably declutter. I do like the bronzer. The bronzer's fine. I usually mix all three of those shades together. The blush is very pink. I'm not typically like a pink blush girly, but it's a fine blush. I would mix them both together. But the eyeshadows just aren't it for me. I'm not typically someone who does a one and done eyeshadow look. I like to mix in some mattes, some shimmers. I like an inner corner pop. As much as I would tell myself in my head that I like a one and done, that I like to just whoop, it's easy. I'm a teacher, I'm a mom, I'm running around, I'm busy. It's easy, right? But I don't find myself reaching for this palette because at the end of the day, those aren't my favorite ways to wear eyeshadow. So I think there's definitely a market for this. I think there are people who will love this palette. I do feel like it's one that will leave my collection probably by the end of the year. I did mention Natasha Denona is my favorite formula for eyeshadows, and number 12 was a Natasha Denona palette, and so is number 11. I promise you, I love these eyeshadows, okay? Coming in at the 11th spot is the Xenon palette. I don't think this was released in 2024. I think it was released last year. However, I filmed a video where I reached out to some of my friends in the beauty space, content creators. I asked them their favorite products, and my friend Kara from Beauty in the Frizz recommended this eyeshadow palette to me. She created a video. Her looks are gorgeous. I had fun playing with this. This is the Natasha Denona eyeshadow formula that I love. I think the quality of this is fantastic. I just don't think this is a realistic palette for me day to day. It's not one that I'm going to reach for unless I'm looking for like a glam smoky look, to be fair. A lot of these are very gray based, very like, it just isn't a color story that speaks to me. This is not one that I have any intention of getting rid of. I think the palette itself is good. It's just a color story that I don't love, and that's why it's coming in at the number 11 spot. This next one, coming in at the number 10 spot, I've been using it a little bit more, and honestly, I'll be interested to see at the end of the year if this moves up in the ranking. But in the number 10 spot is the Colourpop Beauty and the Beast eyeshadow palette. This eyeshadow palette is beautiful. I love Beauty and the Beast. My daughter loves Beauty and the Beast. She saw this palette and her eyes got huge. She was like in awe, right? I love Colourpop shadows. I think they are great quality. I don't think that it's just great because it's affordable. I think that it's great because it's great and it's affordable. I think the color story is fitting to that of Beauty and the Beast. You have the gold, you have the blue, you have some neutral shades. I think this is an overall great palette. I like this one. It came in the number 10 spot because as I'm looking at all of the palettes in front of me, I kind of used this one and then tucked it in a drawer, and I didn't really think about it again. But lately, she's been coming back out more and more. So stay tuned because I am very, very excited to see, and I would not be surprised if toward the end of the year, this one's a little bit higher up. So I live in a one-story house and I film in my bedroom, and the window's like cracked a little bit, just the blinds, so I can get a little bit of natural light, and I can legit see them working on the fence. I'm like, if they catch a glimpse of me with my camera, they're probably like, what the heck is this girl doing? Coming in at number 9 is Nomad Cosmetics. This is the Florida Keys Beachy and Peachy palette. This was sent to me from the brand Nomad Cosmetics. I was super excited for this one because I am a neutral lover, okay? I am not a color lover, but I do enjoy having a couple palettes in my collection that are more colorful for me to play with when I feel like playing. And the thing that I love about this one is it's almost like you kind of have two of these 9 pans, right? So if I cover this up, you have more of like the lighter pastels, fun, beachy, and then you have more ocean vibes with the orange and the blue and the deep. And I really, really enjoyed the looks that I have created with this one. I played with it in the video. I've played with it since then. And this is not one that I feel like will be a day-to-day for me, specifically for the color story, which is why it's in the number 9 spot. But this is a really great palette. It's really great quality. The mattes are super blendable. The shimmers are stunning. I love them. I think that Nomad is a brand that really has super fun eyeshadow palettes because I love traveling. My husband and I have a travel Instagram account, the Friends of Travel, which is always linked down below. But I love traveling and I love makeup. And Nomad Cosmetics also does a great job of putting traveling and makeup together. So now I'm excited and I'm like, you know, I kind of feel like I need to go to the Florida Keys so that I can play with this eyeshadow palette there on the beach. So I did mention that there were a couple palettes that I was putting together. And so in the number 8 spot, again from Nomad Cosmetics, is this trio here. So this is part of their Nomad Air collection. These are the 6-pan eyeshadow palettes. I did create a video, of course, of these, but we have the Canadian Rockies, we have the Oslo palette, and we have the Abu Dhabi palette. The thing that I really, really like about these palettes is that they do have mattes and a couple shimmers in each of them. I like the color stories. Again, I think the quality is phenomenal. I've tried Nomad Cosmetics palettes before, but I really feel like lately they've upped their game in the quality of their shadows. And I am someone who really likes a mini. Like, I enjoy smaller palettes. I don't find myself to be very creative. I don't feel like I look at palettes and see all of these color combinations. So to have a palette that is a little bit smaller, I really, really do enjoy that. I just find that these particular palettes are ones that I do think of like if I'm traveling. And most of the time I'm at home. Now, if I had to rank these 3 all together, I'm collectively putting them at number 8. But out of these 3, I would have to say that the Canadian Rockies would come in 3rd place out of the 3 just because of the color story. I think these shades are fabulous, but it's not a color story that I would reach for very often. Then in the number 2 spot, I would have to say Abu Dhabi. I love the warm tones. I love the shimmers. I like that you have like kind of a trio here and a trio here. I think that is amazing. Followed by the Oslo palette. This one is my favorite. I kind of feel like I'm in like a cool toned phase in my life, if you will. And so I really, really love this shimmer down here. I think it's beautiful. So if you have not tried out Nomad Cosmetics, what are you waiting for? If you're into smaller palettes, if you're looking for a couple that are a little more neutral, they have options for you. Number 7. So I recently went to Austin, Texas, where Angelica Nyquist and Samantha March had a CMG weekend, and I got to meet Jordan, who is the founder of Fantasy Cosmetica, and she was amazing. She was so lovely, but I came home thinking I need to try Fantasy Cosmetica. So I picked up 2 of her palettes. I bought them myself. The Nomad palettes were sent to me. The ones that I'm talking about today were sent to me. I have purchased from them in the past, but I did purchase this palette myself, and this is the Druid palette, I believe is how you say it. This is one that has done really, really well for them. A lot of my friends have talked about this palette. They've said that they really enjoyed it. I recently created looks with this palette and the next palette that I'm going to talk about. I don't know if it's up on my channel yet, so stay tuned and you'll get to see me play with this. But these shimmers, y'all, I say it all the time. Indie does it best. There's nothing that compares to indie shimmers. I love them. The qualities of the mattes, I was kind of surprised at how blendable they were, at how easy. I mean, these are deep, rich shades, and I am very, very fair, but these blended out beautifully on my eyes, and I didn't feel like I needed to reach into another palette. So really, really loved this one. But that moves us into number 6, which is the other Fantasy Cosmetica palette that I was talking to you about. And honestly, when we get to the Nomad palettes and these Fantasy Cosmetica palettes at any point in time, I could change it around. You know what I mean? Like, these are all good palettes, with the exception of not enjoying the Natasha Denona Hyper Natural Face palette. All of these I like and I plan on keeping, but this is the Fighter palette, and this is the one where I thought this color story spoke to me the most. It was most in my comfort zone. Again, the quality is amazing. The mattes are super blendable. The shimmers are stunning. Like, this purple one in Might is amazing. It is absolutely stunning. I loved pairing these two shimmers together. I love that you have a nice neutral look here. Like, this is a palette that I am going to use time and time again. I am excited for the fall because I feel like both the Druid palette and the Fighter palette will be amazing fall palettes, but these are absolutely stunning. And y'all, I was sleeping on Fantasy Cosmetica, but I'm woke. I am woke, okay? Coming in at number 5 is another one from Nomad, and this is the Ireland Wild Atlantic Way. I actually did purchase this one myself. So the other Nomad palettes were sent to me. This one I purchased myself before the brand started sending me PR. I love this color story. I am a little bit Irish, if you can't tell, with the red hair. My red hair is actually Italian, but that's a different story for a different day. I am a little bit Irish. This palette is beautiful. If I'm going to dip into colors, typically greens and purples are the colors that I'm going to reach for. So an all green palette, amazing. Again, the quality is fantastic. And this is just one, it's up here. It's in the number 5 spot because of color story. I already think the Nomad formula is amazing, but this is a color story that feels more comfortable to me. And even though it's a larger palette and I feel like I'm kind of in the era of liking smaller palettes, I find that when I look at this palette, I'm not sitting there confused, like, what should I dip into? What colors go together? They all just go together so well and blend in so easily. So I definitely recommend this one if you are a green lover. This is a great one. Okay, so my top 4. I feel like my top 4 could move around at any point in time. I really love all of the palettes that I'm sharing with you today, like I said, with the exception of the Hyper Natural Face palette. But the top 4, I feel like I've kind of moved them, I've looked at them, you know, I feel like these could move. So I'll be interested to see at the end of the year and with new palettes what stands on top. But in the number 4 spot is the release from Lunar Beauty. This is the Moonroom collection. I have talked about how much I love the Lunar Beauty eyeshadows. I have purchased them myself. I'm not an affiliate. They don't know who I am. But this is a fun color story because very neutral, very comfortable with the top, and then these shimmers, you do have some that are more neutral, and then you have these bright pops, which I think are amazing. You have depth and dimension. You have this super fun pop right here in Pixie Pop. I have really enjoyed playing with this one. Again, I think the Lunar Beauty formula is amazing. I love everything about the shadows themselves, but moreover, it's a color story that's gonna get me, and I love this color story. It's so fun, and I love that I can do like easy everyday, like neutral, comfortable for me, neutral looks, but I can also jazz it up with some color. I like that you have some lighter shades and some deeper shades. It's just an overall great combination. I love the packaging of Lunar Beauty, and I'm a huge fan. Number 3 is a mini, and I believe I technically purchased this at the end of last year, but I am putting it in this ranking because it was not in last year's ranking due to when I purchased it. This is the Natasha Denona My Mini Dream palette. This is one that I reach for a lot when I'm getting ready for work. It kind of sits in my bathroom. It's quick and easy. Grab a matte shade, grab a shimmer shade, you get to go. You're up and at 'em. You're going. It's quick. It's easy. Neutral color story. I love it. I don't think that the quality of these smaller palettes is quite on par with the midis. I do prefer, there we go. I do prefer the Natasha Denona midi palette formula over these smaller ones, but it's a great palette nonetheless. I'm thinking now, and I'm like, is it really number 3? I don't know. I feel like it's kind of already shifting down a little bit, so stay tuned because it'll be interesting to see where this is at the end of the year. In the number 2 spot is the eyeshadow palette that I have on my eyes today, Natasha Denona. You are going to see her up here in these top spots. It is the Natasha Denona Golden palette. I love this one. A lot of people, when they saw this palette, they were like, wow, that's real boring. And I saw it and I was like, yes, give it to me. This is everything I love. I love the browns. I love the golds. I love the boring. It is me. This is me in a palette. I love it. Again, Natasha Denona, favorite formula, so I knew that I was going to love it immediately. But one thing that's very important to me in a palette when I am looking at one that's like going to be my palette is I like to set my eyeshadow primer. So I can set my eyeshadow primer. I also like, if I can deepen up looks, I can deepen up looks. I like to have an inner corner pop. And then we have a variety of mattes and shimmers. They're all brown, they're all neutral, not very exciting, but exciting to me. Exciting to someone like me. So this is in the number 2 spot, and since I got it, I have reached for it a lot, y'all. We are in the top spot, and I debated a little bit about whether or not I should talk about this palette at all because it is a collaboration with a fellow YouTuber who I do know and support and everything, but I tried to take the collaborator out of this palette and just think about the palette itself. And I feel like even if this was not a collaboration palette, it would still be in the top spot because I am reaching for it constantly. And it is the Adept Cosmetics Amy Loves eyeshadow palette. This is a dream. I knew the second that I saw the color story that I would love it. I am obsessed with this lavender shade. I created 2 looks with this and then went on to create 6 more looks and film it. The 2 looks was for y'all so that I could share my thoughts. The 6 looks was for me because I wanted to just keep playing with it. I have played with this palette more off camera than on camera. Like, I just love it so much. I love the way that I can just do a matte and a shimmer. I love the way that I can do like a combination of shimmers. I love that there are deeper colorful shades and more neutral shades. Like, it is just, it's amazing. Adept is a brand, I purchased this myself. Adept is a brand that I have really, really fallen in love with. I first tried them out when my best friend Heather Austin collaborated with them on her palette, and I fell in love with the formula then. The mattes are great. I think the mattes are great, but it's the shimmers for me. There are no shimmers like the Adept shimmer formula. I just think it's amazing. They're so shifty and dimensional and creamy and vibrant on the eyes and sparkly and everything that I love. I love Adept. I love Amy. I love this color story. So I decided I was going to put this in the top spot because if I were to take Amy out of the situation and this was just an Adept palette, I really feel like it would be number 1. Okay, but that is going to do it for this video. I'm sure you can hear the chaos in the background outside, but I wanted to get this up for y'all. I would love to know, have you tried any of these eyeshadow palettes? If you have, let me know your thoughts down below. Do you have a favorite eyeshadow palette that you have been reaching for? I love watching these ranking videos, and I like to do it myself also because I think it'll be fun to come back at the end of the year, like December, and rank all of the palettes that I've tried in 2024. So if you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you are subscribed before you go. That way I can see you in the next one. Bye.